Food as pop culture is not a new construct by any means. What we eat more often than not tells us who we are, what we think, or how we behave. And it's to the point where you can almost assign personality types to different areas of mealtime. Like, you know the difference between a breakfast person and a dinner person. The difference between someone who doesn't drink coffee and someone who would unironically buy a "don't talk to me until I've had my coffee" t-shirt. Those who snack versus those who girl dinner. The espresso martini girlies, the dirty martini girlies, or the no teeny girlies, aka the ones who tried a martini for the first time, realized it was kerosene, and proceeded to dry heave after just one sip. That's not a personal story or anything. And there's one such soft drink that evokes a whole culture in its orbit and perhaps is the pinnacle of exactly what I'm talking about with food as pop culture, and that is Diet Coke. In its more than 40-year history, Diet Coke has become its own fixture within pop Americana. We've seen it in some of our favorite TV shows and films, worn almost as an accessory by our favorite celebrities, and the people who love it most are very particular with the best conduit for its consumption, which I am sure you will tell me in the comments below. Whereas it feels like anyone can dabble in drinking Coca Cola, Diet Coke drinkers feel like they belong to an exclusive and dedicated fraternity. It's Diet Coke or nothing. But it also is a great source of controversy as its health benefits have been called into question for decades on end. And from an anthropological perspective, there are aspects of it that still hold up some of the nastiest held beliefs from within peak diet culture and still centers thinness as the pinnacle of health and wellness. But how did this come to be? When did this synthetic sweetener-laced tonic come to become this massive pop cultural touchstone? And more importantly, what does it say about our relationship to things like diet culture? And what does it say about us? In the religion of soda drinking, there are many denominations to call home. There is the Covenant of Dr. Pepper, the Church of Sprite and Ice, and of course the rift between Pepsiism and Coca Catholic. Hi, I'm Bobby. This is Culture Kitsch, and today we'll be taking a deep dive into the Church of Diet Coke. To really understand a full scope of the drink, you also have to understand the landscape of the American soft drink industry. So for the next hour, I'm just kidding, here's a relatively quick rundown of the origins of Diet Coke. Diet Coke exists within the context, Diet Coke exists within the context of diet food culture that by the time of the release of Diet Coke had already been decades old. The oldest iterations of a no-calorie soda was Kirsch Beverage's No Cal in 1952, Canada Dry's Glamour in 1956, and RC Cola's Diet Right in 1958. Many of these early iterations were actually catered to diabetics and could be found in the medicine section of most stores, but they proved to be a big hit with a growing market group: dieters. Diet culture has been around for a lot longer than we think, with one of the first written texts on the subject of diet coming from William Banting's Letter on Corpulence that was published in 1864, and perhaps even farther back than that with Luigi Cornora's The Art of Living Long that was published in 1558. By the middle of the 20th century, diet food culture had already been well established, and diet soda was just another entrant into its centuries-long history. Soda giant Coca Cola would obviously not be left out of this sugar-free carbonated craze, and in 1963 they introduced their own version of a diet soda, which was Tab. Tab holds a very interesting position in soft drink history because it, similar to Diet Coke, also spawned a cult-like following that followed the soda until its discontinuation in 2020. And I think the most shocking fact of that is that they were still making Tab in the 21st century. Coca-Cola was very strict about only lending the Coke name to products that were directly related to the classic cola, hence the name Tab. However, that would prove to be a bit worrisome for Coke, as their longtime soft drink competitor Pepsi released Diet Pepsi a year after Tab, having no qualms tying this experimental endeavor with their established brand. Though the drink did bear the name Pepsi's Patio when it was initially released, and then was very quickly changed to Diet Pepsi, but you get the point that I'm trying to make. Tab would remain one of, if not the most popular of the diet soda genre until Coca-Cola decided to beat Pepsi at their own game with the release of the Silver Bullet, aka Diet Coke. In addition to trying to further dominate the diet soda market, Coca Cola released Diet Coke for a few other reasons. One of them being that the formulation of Tab and many other sodas on the market had been changed due to the changing landscape of artificial sweeteners. Initially, Tab had been sweetened with cyclamate and saccharin, with the former being banned in 1969 by the FDA because of studies that linked high amounts of cyclamate and saccharin to the development of bladder cancer in rats. That's bad. Most sodas were still flavored with saccharin, but they had to bear a warning label on the cans, which didn't bode well for the marketing, but Tab still remained popular. The early 80s introduced aspartame, which was what Diet Coke was sweetened with, and is still the primary sweetener of the drink to this day, though some fountain versions of the drink still use small amounts of saccharin to help extend shelf life, which might account for why Diet Coke from places like McDonald's tastes a little bit different from canned or bottled versions. Another reason was that Tab was largely being marketed to women, which always tends to happen with diet foods. Something, unfair beauty standards. You get it. Tab regularly featured verbiage that was around keeping your figure, to the point where it culminated in this ad campaign called Mind Sticker that would feature things like this.
Be in his mind. Be a mind sticker with a shape he can't forget.
Gross. Let's move on. Diet Coke was basically the opportunity to appeal to a broader audience, catering both to men and women and children. And in fact, the audience that Diet Coke initially was kind of catering to was leaning much more into the unisex 80s yuppie lifestyle. As the 80s wore on, another group began to really accept Diet Coke. Hollywood. Coca-Cola bought Columbia Pictures in 1982, which there are very insane implications that I just simply do not have the time to go into, but just know that's insane. So obviously Coca-Cola products were going to be featured in their upcoming releases, like in films like Ghostbusters. It was in this period of years that Diet Coke grew to cultural prominence and began to feel like everyone who was anyone was always drinking Diet Coke. By the 1990s, the fervor of diet drinks began to ebb as many of its most ardent supporters were beginning to move towards other drink options like teas and juices and coffee. In the early half of the decade, the soda decided to pivot more directly to cater to women, as there was a societal assumption that diet drinks were inherently feminine, which would turn off men from drinking it, which is where we kind of see the infamous Diet Coke break ad campaign. Diet Coke also tried to win back the youth by hitching their wagon onto a burgeoning show, NBC's Friends. This was a $30 million campaign that included product placement in episodes of the series, sponsored viewing parties on college campuses, and the Who's Gonna Drink Diet Coke contest that ran for weeks on end. Though this partnership did come in tandem with dozens of other campaigns that featured the series cast, with the Chicago Tribune saying, quote, "If there's one thing Generation X is known for, it is skepticism, even cynicism, about precisely this kind of obvious advertising ploy. So maybe, just maybe, they'll take away from this not the idea that they should drink Diet Coke, but that the company that makes it is greedy and arrogant, and Diet Coke's millions will go down the same sewer grate as the credibility of Friends." That was the most hater-ass shit I've ever read, and this is why I went to school for journalism. The campaign was extremely successful and thus kind of helped to revitalize Diet Coke and send it into the new millennium, where it would kind of ebb and flow in popularity due to the rise and fall of diet sodas that would happen over the next 20 years. Which brings us to the here and the now.
In Cyberland, we only drink Diet Coke.
The culture of Diet Coke is perhaps the most interesting thing about it, as it is both incredibly broad and yet crazy specific. Simultaneously fun, but at times restrictive, which makes sense for a drink whose main ploy is baked into both its name and marketing. Diet. You can't run away from the cultural implications of diet sodas, as they are almost seen as accessories on the people that we deem as the peak of how we should look. And there's no better example of this than how the high fashion world made Diet Coke the it drink. Krista D'Souza for The Guardian described in a 2013 article that in the 1990s, Diet Coke became the can clutched in every model and celebrity's manicured hand. And via the explosion of paparazzi culture and celebrity magazines, that relationship was seen in every home. The supermodel diet of Marlboro Lights and Diet Coke may not have topped the bestsellers chart alongside the Atkins, but it was there in photographs in every magazine. Diet Coke became the ultimate accessible fashion accessory, cheaper than a knit bag, more obvious than a perfume, and available in every corner shop. The backstages of some of the biggest fashion shows in the world serve too as a covert form of advertising. I mean, it's very lucrative to have the most beautiful people in the world walking around holding a cold, refreshing Diet Coke in their hands. There seems to be this inherent air around Diet Coke as being the drink of the beautiful people, the it girls, the ones to watch, the people who got it together, the drink of the somebodies. And this isn't something exclusive to Diet Coke. There are many products that are sold to us that promise for a better this or that, a product that is the key to a better existence. And I think that's why the drink falls in lockstep with the numerous wellness trends that we tend to see on TikTok. The latest salad or 15-minute low-cal, low-carb meal or treat is almost always accompanied by a Diet Coke. Many of the health trends on the app are just the harmful rhetoric of 2000s diet culture that's just been repackaged under the guise of wellness. You're not trying to lose weight, you're just trying to fix your gut. A 2022 op-ed from Teen Vogue delves into the topic saying, the return of Diet Coke as an accessory seems to be bringing us squarely back to when thinness was inherently tied to what we found fashionable and beautiful. Drinking Diet Coke won't make you thin, and obviously not all Diet Coke drinkers are thin, but in the rise in social media cachet of this particular beverage is yet another reminder that we are returning to an era where thinness was a hallmark of beauty, and Diet Coke was a staple in the community that defined what beauty is. That beauty ideal never really went away, but it waned. With its full-fledged return comes the seemingly increasing popularity of diet products, whether that be Diet Coke, diet food, or even diet medications like Ozempic and Wegovy. Now, I'm not saying that it is inherently wrong to drink Diet Coke. We are afforded only so many small, fleeting moments of happiness. So if that can of Diet Coke is going to get you through this day, run with it, diva. But maybe just don't drink like 6 cans in one day. That just doesn't feel like it might be good for you. And one of the higher points in the church of Diet Coke is its place as a symbol of the little pleasures in life. And while it can feel a bit excessive and a little bit nutty from the outside looking in, I think the culture of Diet Coke is at its best when the people who love it for it, and not for its 0-calorie promises, and not for it being the river to a better body and a better you. A lot of the online chatter around Diet Coke is centered around the Gen Z phenomena of romanticizing life, making big the small moments of our day. For some, that can mean taking a break to go outside and sip a can of Diet Coke in the middle of your workday, or it means going out with friends to gossip over multiple glasses of Diet Coke and a shared plate of fries. It's just the little things in life. The current state of Diet Coke as pop culture does leave a lot of room for those who love it to love it for how it makes them feel or how they share it with others. And I even put this little theory to the test as I polled my Twitter followers to tell me what felt evocative of Diet Coke to them or what felt like Diet Coke core. Answers range from feelings like a summertime movie in a mall theater or filling up gas on your way to the beach, or people like teachers or their moms or Delta work, most specifically. The biggest takeaway was that this drink, no matter what form it comes in, serves as something bigger than just the act of consuming it. It does what food as pop culture can do, which is to serve as the paint strokes to the masterpiece that is cherished memories. The history and culture of Diet Coke have been greatly shaped and altered by a society that is actively at war with itself in a lot of ways. A time when the food that we eat can perfectly describe who we love, who we hate, what we love about ourselves, what we hate about ourselves. Diet Coke is just one example of food as pop culture, but I think it's kind of a special one. One that actively exists in the gray areas of identity. Something that can be seen as harmful and disgusting by some and delicious and treasured by others. It's a very unique place. Here's to you, Diet Coke drinkers. Me personally, I'm much more of a regular Coca Cola girl.